Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. My elation that my boss John got a big promotion quickly turned to despair. John's big promotion will bring him to England, away from me. I ran to the bathroom and cried like a child. John was my boss, but I was in love with him and believed that he loved me. Yes, we were in love and married, but not with each other. While I was in love with John, I was also in love with my husband Tom. I never intended to fall in love with John, but somehow it happened. After working with John on several projects, he invited me to become his administrative assistant. John is a handsome man, and I immediately noticed his appearance when we started working closely together. John had the charisma to command our team. He had a way of making me feel special when his attention was on me. Being 10 years older than me, John had a maturity and charm that I liked. Working side by side, we developed an intimacy. He never missed an opportunity to praise me for the way I was dressed and looked, at first not in a betting sense. Somewhere along the way, our relationship became very personal. We talked about some things that I wouldn't discuss with my husband, including our bed life. My husband Tom was a completely different person. He doesn't have the looks of John's good-looking boyfriend. He had what I would call a rugged good looks. He is a wonderful husband, and has never stopped giving me pleasure in bed. It was probably this difference that attracted me to John. John's touch on my arms and shoulders lasted longer and longer. The handshakes between us turned into hugs. The first time his hand rested on my hip, we both felt the tension. I was never going to cheat on Tom, but I had to admit to myself that I had feelings for John, and he had feelings for me. As his administrative assistant, I accompanied him on most of his trips. John never openly pushed, but we both felt attracted. I still remember the first time we danced on a trip. We went to the club with a large group of colleagues. Everyone else went to their rooms when John invited me to dance to what he said was his favorite song. It was a fast song, so I didn't mind. When this song ended, a slow song started playing. In the middle of the song, I melted into his arms. It was so wonderful. John is built very similar to Tom. Tom is a little more muscular and younger. That night, we danced every slow song until closing time. When the last call was announced, John invited me to his room for a drink at night. I was very tempted. I admit that I felt a wet arousal between my legs. I knew that if I went to his room, we would end up in bed. I told him no, and that I couldn't do that to Tom. John insisted on taking me to my room. The kiss we exchanged at my door almost convinced me to let him in. My marriage meant too much to me to cheat on Tom. I reasoned that the kiss and a little dancing weren't a physical deception because I stopped John. I admitted to myself that I really had feelings for John. I was ashamed of myself that night. I imagined it was John making love to me while my fingers were working. I've always been proud to be a moral person. That pride prevented me from betraying my husband, even though I wanted so badly to give in to my feelings for John. On the Monday morning after that trip, I went into John's office and told him that we needed to talk. John, we need to talk about this last trip. You know I care deeply about you, but we're both married. I will not cheat on my husband. Molly, I can see it in your eyes. You love me as much as I love you. We could express our love and our spouses would never know about it. I saw it in your eyes after we danced. You wanted me to make love to you. I cut him off quickly. John, I admit it. I wanted to make love to you that night. I just can't. I don't want to ruin both of our marriages. Please respect that. I turned and walked out of his office. Our relationship continued in the same spirit. During the trips, we had lunch together and danced most of the time. Slow dancing was our favorite. It was the closest we came to making love. John rubbed against me, and I rubbed against him in return. Every time he tried to convince me to go to his room, I refused and shared a pleasant kiss with him at my door. I tried my best to hide my feelings for John from my husband, but he suspected that something was going on. He asked several times if anything was going on. I told him every time that there was nothing between us. We were work colleagues and good friends. There were several corporate events where John and I danced. Every time I told John that dancing in front of our spouses was a bad idea, but he insisted. From my conversation with John's wife, Gail, I realized that she suspected that something was going on between us. She confirmed her suspicions when she invited us to have dinner with them. Gail cornered me in the bathroom. Look, Molly, I can tell that you and my husband have feelings for each other. I cut her off quickly. Mrs. Decker, there's nothing going on between us. There's definitely something going on. He's obsessed with you. Do you remember that last corporate party when you danced indecently close to him? I nodded. He shouted your name when he used me that night. He said nothing was going on, but I knew before that he was in love with you. You just haven't given up yet. I can see it in your eyes. I admitted that I had feelings for her husband, but I wasn't going to cheat on my husband. Please, please don't say anything to my husband, I begged her. She agreed if I promised not to cross the line. That was 6 months ago. To be honest with myself, I know that if I hadn't made that promise to Gail, I probably would have succumbed to John's advances. A week after John's announcement, I was called to his office. I was confused because I knew John was at a meeting outside the company. Confusion turned to surprise when I was greeted by John's wife, who motioned me into the office. Gail closed the door behind me and sat down in her husband's chair. As you know, we are moving to England due to John's promotion. My agreement that John would accept the position was that you would not go with him. I'm tired of being second only to his love for you. Gail, I've fulfilled my agreement with you. I know that. I talked to John about his feelings for you. John confessed his love for you. He says you resisted his advances. I think the fact that you're rejecting him has made him want you even more. You are the forbidden fruit he craves. Do you realize that most of the company thinks that you two are making love? Oh my God, really? Yes, Molly, it is. You two look like teenagers in love. I told John that if he wants to stay married, your relationship will end when we move in. I have come with an offer that will allow you to break off this relationship and get rid of this in both your heads forever. I don't need Molly's ghost hanging over my marriage for the rest of my life. I'll arrange a weekend for you together. A weekend where there are no rules. You two can do whatever you want. In exchange, you will both sign a post-wedding agreement. This agreement stipulates that you both agree that after your weekend together, you will never, I mean never, contact again. If you do this, it will be grounds for divorce, and 100% of the family property will be provided to the spouses, me and your husband. Your weekend will be at our lake house and your husband should be present. What? Are you crazy? My husband will kill me, I said angrily. Right now, he thinks you're having an affair. A panicked expression appeared on my face. Don't tell me this is news to you. He came right up and asked me while you two were cheek to cheek at the Christmas party. In this way, you will both saturate your feelings forever. Yes, it will be done intentionally. You will show your husband the post-wedding agreement and tell him that after the weekend he will know for sure that everything is over and you can continue to live your life. Let's say I agree to this. Why is he there? To humiliate him? No, nothing like that. His presence is my insurance policy. This way, I will be sure that he knows about the agreement, and I believe that I can count on him to fulfill it. I'll have something for him there too. It'll keep him busy while you spend time with John. I don't understand. What do you have for Tom? To be honest, I have a 22-year-old red-haired girl. She's stunning, and she's a professional. A little eye for an eye, I think you could say that. I stood there stunned. My mind was racing. My first reaction was that Gail's plan was the stupidest idea ever. Tom would never let me make love to John, but I desperately wanted to make love to him. Gail gave me the opportunity. The price had to be high. Tom had to find out that I cheated on him, but we would be on equal terms if I let him spend the weekend with a redhead. I can't believe that my husband would trade a weekend with a cheater for me to break our marriage vows. Honey, she's not really a cheater. I'd say she's an actress. She is stunningly beautiful. An ordinary man like your husband would never refuse to spend the weekend with her. If I let you spend time with my husband, he deserves something for himself as compensation. What if he doesn't do it? You say he loves you. If he loves you the way I love my husband, he'll let it go for one weekend. Once it's over, he'll never have to wonder if your affair is over. He will know for sure. If he loves you, he'll let you spend this weekend. For some reason, what she was saying made sense. I would have spent the weekend with John and it would have been over. Tom would never have to worry about my feelings for John. Deep down, I knew it was a bad idea, but I was blinded by my love or lust for John. I agreed to Gail's plan. We had lunch twice in our conference room, planning the details of the weekend. At the second lunch, John and I signed post-wedding agreements. Gail discussed every line with us in detail. She said it was done to make sure no one made a mistake about the contents. One of the secretaries notarized them. I should have been embarrassed. I think she knew what we were doing, but I was too excited to worry. I still hadn't told Tom and wasn't sure how to do it. Gail suggested that I not tell him until we were at the lake house. Like everything else, it seemed to me that it was a mistake, but I foolishly agreed again. Gail suggested that I tell Tom the whole plan only when we arrive at the lake house and only after he meets the redhead. I would show him the post-wedding agreement and tell him he was going to spend the weekend with a beautiful woman. Gail won't be there. She said she couldn't handle it. I had to give Tom her number so he could call if he had any questions. Questions. That would be an understatement, I think. By warning Tom just a few days in advance, I hoped to keep his questions to a minimum. Tom was unhappy but agreed. He was clearly suspicious of weekends. I tried not to think about it, repeating all the time that I needed this weekend. When I thought about the weekend, I assumed that everything would turn out exactly as Gail said. John and I would have had the weekend we've always dreamed of, and it would all be over. I would spend the rest of my life making amends to my husband. I almost canceled everything when I saw red-haired Jackie. Now Tom wasn't the only one who was jealous. She was 11 on a scale of 10. Gail was right. There wouldn't be a single man who would turn her down. She hugged Tom tightly and kissed him on the cheek. I wasn't thrilled that my husband would make love to this woman. I was trying to figure out how I would compare myself to her after the weekend. But right now, I was sticking to the plan. The company's head of security, Larry, took care of our bags, and then he was assigned to take care of Tom while John and I conferred. He also had to make sure that John wasn't physically attacked when Tom found out what was going to happen at the lake house. John and I were talking across the room when John pulled me in for a passionate kiss. We had just broken off the kiss when Larry shouted that he and Tom were back. Damn, Larry should have let us know before they entered the room. Tom came in just as John and I were hugging. I was so glad he hadn't seen us kiss before they came in. Tom knew something was up and was asking me what the hell was going on. John directed us to a private room to talk in private. I thought I was going to throw up before I started talking. I took a deep breath, asking Tom not to interrupt, and gave Tom my confession. I told Tom that I was in love with John, but I was also in love with him. I explained how the weekend was going to be and the post-wedding agreement that John and I had signed. The signed post-wedding agreement was in his suitcase, and he could read it when he entered the room. Tom begged me to go home with him right now. I tried to tell him that this is the best thing for us, and that he will see that everything will work out for us. When he asked why Gail wasn't here, I gave him her phone number, saying she would explain everything. Tom told me that my actions threatened our marriage, but when he didn't leave, I thought everything would be fine, as Gail said. Dinner was very stressful. John asked me not to wear wedding rings, and I did. Tom, looking at my hands, immediately noticed this, but did not say anything. He just pointed at my bare finger. If looks could kill, I'd be dead with John. I do not know where Tom went after dinner, but John took me to our bedroom. We hugged and kissed for a few minutes when he told me he wanted to go for a swim before putting me to bed. John and I walked to the pool holding hands. I was so relieved to see Tom sitting in a chair and looking at Jackie's ass. I was jealous of her and her perfect ass, but I was going to get John. Releasing John's hand, I quickly walked over to Tom and rested my head on his shoulder. I said, "I love you, Tom. Everything will work out. We'll talk when we get home." My heart sank when Tom shouted loudly, "Go to hell." John quickly grabbed my arm, leading me back to our bedroom. He saw that there were tears in my eyes. He said, "Darling, everything will be fine, you'll see. We've come this far, let's have the weekend we've always dreamed of." John kissed me on the lips, pulling me towards the bed. My love for John overcame my concerns about Tom's situation. His lips were incredible. He slowly undressed me until I was naked in front of him. "Oh my God, you're so beautiful. I've loved you for so long, and now I can be with you." John kissed me before undressing. I examined his body. It was as beautiful as I thought it would be. He wasn't as muscular as Tom, but he was very good-looking. John lowered me onto the bed before joining me. "I know we have the whole weekend ahead of us, but I need to make love to you right now," John whispered to me. It seemed like an hour or two had passed when John asked me to take a dip in the pool at night. It sounded so romantic that we got dressed quickly, not knowing who else was awake at this time of night. We went out to the pool, fortunately, finding no one there. I grabbed John's hand as we approached the pool. "Oh, John, this is so wonderful. I've loved you for so long, and finally I can show you how much. I'm going to miss you, but we have 2 days to spend in love and remember it for the rest of our lives. Let's get naked and make love in the pool. Take off your clothes, I'll get us some drinks." I was just getting to the door when I heard Tom's voice. "Hey, asshole." I turned around in horror and saw my husband kick John in the groin. When John bent over in pain, Tom kicked him in the chin and John fell backwards into the pool. I ran to the pool and helped John out of it. I was trying to see if he was okay when I noticed that Tom wasn't there. Larry ran out, helping me drag John into the house. A few minutes later, Larry went to check on Tom, but told us that his room was empty and our car was gone. I went to his room, crying and already knowing that he would not be there. In the morning, John found me curled up on the bed. He lay down next to me and said how sorry he was that things weren't going as planned. When I asked where the others were, he told me that he had sent the others home so that we could be alone. He also offered to take me home if I wanted to. I seriously considered returning home, but decided that the damage had already been done. This was supposed to be my last chance to be with John. I put Tom out of my mind, deciding to have fun. We spent the weekend eating, drinking, and trying to make love. Although Tom's punch didn't kill John's manhood, it caused John a lot of pain. By Saturday evening, John was very tense, and I don't mean in a good way. I tried to climb on top of him to make love, but he was in too much pain. As much as I was afraid to go home, I was ready to go. Gail was right. The weekend gave me the opportunity to put John out of my mind. I was really in love with John, but I knew that my love for him was not the same as my love for Tom. She was right about the forbidden nature, the thing that excited me. I was going to miss John, but I was ready for him to leave my life, and I was ready to go back to being Tom's wife. When we got to the driveway, John helped me out of the car, but I was actually helping him, as he was moving very slowly. He still hadn't recovered from Tom's blow. John hugged me and kissed me passionately. He told me how much he loved me and how much he would miss me. Just when I was about to tell him that I love him, I heard Tom's voice. "Asshole, if you don't get out of here in 5 seconds, I'm going to do more than just beat the shit out of you." John gave me a quick kiss goodbye before he left. I grabbed my bag, glad that the whole episode was behind me. I walked into the living room and found Tom sitting in his favorite armchair. I noticed the post-wedding agreement on the coffee table. I started to apologize, but Tom cut me off. "No, you will answer my questions before you say anything. Don't you dare try to lie. I want the truth. Did you have sex with John this weekend?" "Yes." "Why did I have to be there while you were making love to him? Was it to humiliate me?" "God, no, honey, I would never do that to you. That was Gail's condition. She wanted to make sure you were aware of the agreement. She said that this way you'll understand how committed we both are to never making contact again. That's why you were given our agreement and a signed copy of John's post-wedding agreement." "Big guy Larry. Is he an employee of the company?" "Yes, he is the head of the security service. But you know, I told you that he guards the company at the lake house." I started to get nervous about Tom's questions. Tom picked up the agreement. "The notary's name seems familiar. Does she work for your company?" "Yes, this is Dana. She's one of the secretaries. I think you know her." Tom's face broke into a grin. I was getting more and more worried. "Those dinners you told me about, where you planned to spend this weekend. They were in your office, weren't they?" "Yes, why are you asking these strange questions?" "Just answer my questions, I have only one left. How do you think all this was supposed to end?" Tears were streaming down my cheeks now. "Gail said that if you loved me enough to let me spend this weekend with John, you'd let it go, and then I'd spend the rest of my life making amends to you." I put my head in my hands, crying and realizing how stupid it sounds. Tom picked up his phone and pressed the red button on the screen. "The questions are over. I'll show you your room." "Okay, I need to rest." "Wait, what do you mean by my room?" "Now you live in the guest room. That's where you'll stay." "But no, I want to go to our bedroom with you." "You didn't think I'd sleep with a dirty cheater, did you?" "Oh, I guess you really thought I'd do that, didn't you?" "What did you call me?" I asked through tears. Tom didn't say another word. He just took my bag to the guest room and threw it there. I watched him go into our bedroom. I noticed that the door had a new handle with a key lock. "Oh my God, I'm in trouble," I thought. I cried myself to sleep, not knowing what would happen next. Tom was already up and gone when I got up. It was Monday morning and I still had to go to work. This was supposed to be John's last week, and there was a lot to do before he left. I did my best to pull myself together and go to work. It was hard to focus on work without knowing what my husband was thinking or doing. I had several meetings with John and my new boss, Sylvia. The strange thing was that I was looking at John in a new light. My regret for what we did this weekend was overwhelming. Our agreements were drawn up taking into account the fact that John and I would need to be contacted after the weekend for work purposes. With that in mind, they stipulated that John and I could communicate during this last week at work. but nothing romantic could happen between us. I felt that it would be difficult for John to do this. Several times his hand lingered on my shoulder and back. Several times he whispered in my ear how special the weekend was for him and how glad he was to be able to express his love to me. Every time I looked at him and hissed fiercely, reminding him of the agreement. I was exhausted physically and emotionally when I returned home. It was dark and cold. Tom wasn't always at home when I came home from work, but I was hoping he would be here tonight. I wrote to him several times during the day. Nothing was received in return. I texted him again asking if I should arrange dinner for him. As in the afternoon, I did not receive any response. My calls went straight to voicemail. Tom didn't come home that night or the next. I was worried that he had just left me. Wednesday was supposed to be John's last day at the office. I planned a farewell party and even invited his wife. The party was very pleasant and everyone had something to say about John and the wonderful job he would do in England. I worked hard, staying in the background, giving John space. When we were done, I helped John and Gail load their cars with John's personal belongings. Gail left, saying she was going to pick up the last boxes from her office and say goodbye to me before heading home. As soon as Gail walked out the door, John grabbed me in his office. I protested by raising my hand. "John, we can't do this. Remember the agreement." "Shh, there's no one around. No one will recognize. This is our last kiss." John hugged me tightly and kissed me for a long time. "Molly, I love you and I'm going to miss you terribly. I need one last time to remember you." We kissed for a few moments before he carried me to the couch. I should have told him no, but I thought this would be the last time I'd see him. I dressed quickly before running to the bathroom to tidy myself up. John and I walked over to his car with the last of his boxes. He kissed me again before he left. As I turned into the driveway, my heart started pounding when I saw Tom's car in the garage. As soon as I turned off the car, my phone rang. It was John, so I took the call. "Is he joking with this?" John shouted. "John, what are you talking about?" "Gail and I have just been served, and I just got off the phone with the CEO. Your husband is suing the company. Is this some kind of game that you two are playing?" "John, I don't know what you're talking about. Tom is here. I'll get to the bottom of this." When I entered the living room, Tom was back in his chair with a big smile on his face. Before I could say anything, my phone rang again with my mom's beep. Tom looked at me and laughed. "You should probably take this." Mom, calm down. You're talking too fast. Start all over again." I heard my mother take a deep breath. "I received a strange email from someone I didn't recognize who told me to go to your Facebook page. There are photos of you dancing with a strange man, and another photo of you kissing this man at what looks like a hotel room door. The caption under each picture reads, 'Corporate cheater. Your status now shows that you are divorced. What the hell is going on?' I looked at Tom, who was just smiling. "Mom, this is all a big mistake. Someone hacked my account. I'll call you back." I hung up the phone, looking at Tom. "What have you done?" "What exactly are you asking?" "I've done a lot in the last few days. If your mom asked about your Facebook page, I was just trying to help you." "What does that even mean?" "John said you're suing him and the company. It was the same look I saw that night at dinner. If looks could kill." "I'm glad to hear that the asshole and his wife have received my documents. Don't worry, you'll get yours soon. But yes, I'm suing them both for alienation of affection. The funny thing is that my lawyer said that most of these cases lead to nothing. But he said that with the evidence I have, we have a great chance of winning. Gail's admission that she organized the weekend will go a long way to ensuring that I receive a significant portion of their assets. As for your company, did you know that they have a very strict fraternization policy? I have to thank you for having such an end-to-end registration system. This made it easier for me to find employment documents for your company. Using a company employee as a notary would be enough to prosecute the company, but the presence of a company security officer and planning a weekend in the office will push my case to a great finish. My God, what have you done? You and your lover and your wife started this. I'm just reacting. You really thought that I would let you use an asshole and we would live happily ever after. We grow old together with you, keeping your fond memories of how you and John cuckolded me that fateful weekend. I'm sorry to tell you this, but that's not how I play." Tears were streaming down my face when I realized what a mess I had made. "Please, Tom, I didn't want it to happen this way. Let me make it up to you." Tom laughed devilishly. "Molly, the best thing about you and John royally screwing up is Gail's involvement. I wonder if this was her plan from the beginning. I was completely confused. What does this mean? Do you remember that Gail forced you and John to sign this post-wedding agreement? It stipulated that you and John couldn't have any contact after he left town. It is equally important that there is another provision in it. Knowing that you would still have to work together for a few days next week, the document stated that after the weekend, the two of you should not have any romantic contacts. The document stated in great detail that there should be no non-work-related contacts until he leaves the country. I gasped. There was no one around. There was no way he could have found out about John and me after Gail left. Watching that kiss in the driveway, I realized that a guy in love won't leave without using you at least one more time. I just knew he would try to use you. I have a wonderful photo of you and John kissing less than 20 minutes ago. Would you like to see this? Here, take a look at this cute photo that my private investigator took of you two kissing. Tom, it was just a kiss. Yes, you're right, it was just a kiss. You can make the judge think that it was just a goodbye kiss and you shouldn't refer to the post-wedding agreement, but I have other photos that are even better. Tom handed me another photo of John using me on the couch. My God, it's not what you think. Oh yes, it is. This is the quality of the photos when the photographer was in the next building and shot through the window of John's office. Aren't you very curious if anyone else has been watching you like I have? Kissing alone would lead to a violation of the post-wedding agreement. But damn it, the pictures of you making love to him on the couch completely violate him. Aren't you wondering if this was Gail's plan from the beginning? If I had assumed that you would violate the terms of the agreement, she should have assumed the same thing. I can't believe what she would say. Use my husband for the weekend and everything would be forgiven. Don't you think she set you up? Oh my God, Tom was right. Please, Tom, I've made a terrible mistake. I love you. Can we please talk and work this out? What? Now I have some ideas. Let me think about how it all happened. You didn't talk to me when you were working out your plan to use John. You didn't ask me to join you when you were having lunch, planning to make me a cuckold. As far as I remember, I did not take any part in the discussion to destroy our marriage. I've never been given the opportunity to talk you out of your stupidity, but now you want to talk to me. I'm sorry. I had to talk to you. Tom stood up, cutting me off. I'm going to do you the same favor you did me. I'll tell you how it's going to happen, and now you won't interrupt me. The divorce papers will be handed to you in the next few days. I have to change them to reflect your violation of the post-wedding agreement that you kindly provided. You can stay in the house until the final divorce. That's as long as you stay in the guest room. The terms of the divorce will be the same as spelled out in the post-wedding agreement that you have drawn up. My lawyer said that if I had drawn it up, it would have been impossible because it was too harsh on you. The fact that it was your idea or Gail's idea that you agreed with makes it quite feasible. You will get nothing from our marriage. Not the car you drive, not your jewelry, not any part of my company, not any assets that we created during this marriage. I could even get rid of any of your clothes, but I don't need them. You will receive no alimony, no maintenance, no home. The funny thing about all this is that it was Gail's idea. Please, Tom, I cried. Stop, I said. Don't interrupt. I'm not done yet. You asked me what I did. I'm coming for your precious John, his wife, and your company. I served them all today. The best part is that you've provided me with all the evidence that puts the company right in my line of sight. My lawyer is going to give your company 2 offers. First of all, they pay me $5 million, and I don't reveal the company's plot to ruin my marriage and make me a cuckold. Their strict moral policy is very good for me. My second suggestion is that they only pay me $500,000. A good deal, don't you think? The caveat is that they fire both you and John for moral reasons in public. But Tom, it would ruin us both. Oh yes, that's exactly what you're going to do. Now you're beginning to understand Molly. I also sent a letter to your family, which should be on their email right now, which has a copy of the post-wedding agreement that you signed, along with a note outlining your plan to humiliate me by using John in front of me. My God, you didn't do that. I still can't believe that you thought so little about me that if I had been given a pretty actress, I would have let you do it. I would never even consider cheating on you, and certainly not with an available girl while I was married. Did you know that she gave me her number before I left? But you said you wouldn't make love to her, I said through tears. No, I said I won't make love to her while I'm married. I called her yesterday to see if she would help with my lawsuits. We made a deal. I wouldn't mention her name in lawsuits or call her as a witness. She promised me 3 days off after the divorce was finalized. She said something about having to do all my chores in advance because I wouldn't be able to walk properly for a few days after that. Oh my God, Tom, please don't do this. Hey, I also thought it might be beneficial for you to be fired for moral reasons. I'm sure you can find another company that needs a corporate cheater. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. As for John and Gail, I will personally take care of them. If Gail really did it knowing that she was going to take everything from her husband, I bet she didn't count on me to take some of it. I have just one question for you. Did you really believe that I would let you humiliate me like that and do nothing? I cried for a few moments while I searched for an answer. Tom, I do not know what I was thinking. I was upset about John leaving. Gail suggested the idea of spending the weekend. She said it would be good to get rid of it in our heads once and for all. Gail told me that if you loved me, you would let me spend one weekend. God, I was so stupid. Tom laughed. Finally, we agree on something. In your world, if I loved you enough, I would let you spend the weekend in bed with your lover, and then I would take you back as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry, but you should have known that this is not the man you married. I took our vows seriously, and when you broke them and shoved it in my face, you killed the love I felt for you. When I look at you now, I don't see the woman I married. I see a cheater. I just hope your weekend was worth it. I wanted to tell him that it wasn't like that, and that I was sorry. All that came out of my mouth was crying. Finally, I called my mom to come pick me up. I knew I couldn't stay in what was my home anymore. It was difficult to explain my stupidity to my parents. The expression of disgust and anger was harder to bear than their silence. I called work, saying I was going to take a 2-week vacation. In the second week, I got a call and was told that I had to be at work on Friday for a mandatory meeting with the CEO of the company, who was flying to the city. I assumed that Tom had given them his ultimatum and I should have been fired. I cleaned myself up as best I could, and my father took me to the office. He escorted me to the conference room and told everyone that he was going to stay with me. The CEO, accompanied by the HR director and a woman I didn't know, entered the room. The CEO has started, "Mrs. Adams, may I call you Molly?" I nodded. "Molly, I think you know why we're here. Your husband, Mr. Adams, is suing the company for allowing an inappropriate relationship between the head of this company and his subordinate. In the short time that we had to investigate this matter, it became clear that the company's resources were used to support inappropriate relationships. Our lawyers advised us that it is best to negotiate with your husband, or, as he put it, your future ex-husband. What I have to discuss with you now must remain a closely guarded secret. Your father can only stay if you both agree to the confidentiality of everything that is discussed in this room, or your father will have to leave." My father agreed when a tear rolled down my face. "Your husband gave us 2 options for settling the lawsuit. Our lawyers have proposed a third option. This option will require your approval. Mr. Adams wanted you and Mr. Decker fired, or he wanted very substantial compensation. We objected. Mr. Decker has already been fired for moral reasons. We haven't seen any other options, but we decided not to fire you, but to increase his payment to $1 million. You will be demoted from executive assistant to secretary. Your salary will remain the same, as will your benefits." He pushed a piece of paper towards me. "This is an agreement that sets out what I just told you." My dad spoke up. "We will ask our lawyer to take a look at it and we will contact you." The CEO looked worried. "Please do this, but we don't have much time to respond to Mr. Adams." Dad drove me straight from the office to his lawyer. I was shocked by how quickly we got to the lawyer's office. I was handed the divorce papers last week, but I didn't have a lawyer, so I guess I was hoping Tom would change his mind. After an hour of waiting, David Wilbur agreed to be my lawyer in connection with the divorce and my new employment problems. Mr. Wilbur told us that he had reviewed both the divorce application and the post-wedding agreement, as well as the agreement that our CEO submitted. "Molly, we can challenge the divorce on the grounds that the post-wedding agreement is very cruel. The problem is that, in fact, it was compiled at your request. If Tom had forced this on you, it would never have been feasible. We can fight, but I don't like our chances. Our best chance is to wear Tom down to make him change his mind." I spoke quickly. "I want to fight. There are some disturbing points in this agreement with your company. Yes, they want to negotiate with your husband, but if they fire you, you will have an even more serious case of harassment. There are provisions in this agreement that prohibit you from testifying in your husband's lawsuits. They won't be enforceable, but they can use them to undermine your credibility. The main provision of this agreement prohibits you from taking action against the company for harassment. That's what they're after." I was confused. John didn't force me. I did it out of my own stupidity. The lawyer looked at me with a serious look. I know you believe it was voluntary, but he was your boss. He had a great influence on you. I would suggest that we stick to a different strategy. We join your husband's harassment lawsuit. Of course, you will lose your job if we join the lawsuit, but I think that at some point it is inevitable. The lawyer left the room to give my father and me a chance to talk. I reasoned with my father that if I joined Tom's efforts to pursue the company, I would have a chance to repair some kind of relationship with Tom and save our marriage. Without my consent, the company could not agree to the terms of the settlement agreement. I wasn't fired, but the atmosphere was almost unbearable. I was an outcast. No one was talking to me, and the looks I was getting were painful. My parents were still supportive, but even they couldn't hide their disgust at the situation I had put myself in. My plan to get Tom's location back failed. He refused to speak at the divorce hearings and mediation sessions. When we requested a consultation, the judge scheduled a hearing on the matter. I was called to testify and questioned about my weekend with John. I tried to mitigate the effect, but even my parents thought I was a dumb fool who thought I was in love. Tom's lawyer asked me one last question. Was this weekend worth it? I screamed back, no, I wish it had never happened. In the end, the judge ruled that since the post-wedding agreement was my idea, it was enforceable, and allowed the divorce without consultation. Tom was true to his word. I didn't get anything during the years of our marriage except my clothes. My parents let me stay with them since I had nowhere else to go. I continued to work for the company, but as a secretary. It was torture to go to work every day. I was isolated in the office, and when I saw others, they looked at me like I was sick. I was looking for another job, but I had to stay until the trial was over. 4 months after the final divorce, my lawyer notified me that he and the parties had reached an agreement to settle all lawsuits related to this case. I was surprised to learn that all the parties had to meet to sign the settlement documents. My lawyer told me that he thought it was Tom's idea so he could mess with me one more time before it was all over. I was hoping to see and talk to Tom. I haven't heard from him since the divorce. I did my best to dress up, but I didn't look impatient. My lawyer and I arrived first, followed shortly by Tom and his lawyer. We exchanged pleasantries, and I asked Tom if we could have a little chat after signing. My hopes rose when he agreed. The CEO of the company and his lawyer were next to arrive. They both looked very angry. The first of many shocks came when John came in. His clear professional gaze was gone. His hair was in disarray, sporting a thin beard. He looked weak and ill. I leaned over to my lawyer. He looks terrible. Where's Gail? I asked. Before Mr. Wilbur could answer me, Gail followed her lawyer in. She was dressed impeccably. The next surprise was that she and John were sitting on opposite sides of the table. A man in a suit entered the room, accompanied by 2 women who were apparently his assistants. The women placed packages of documents in front of each of the participants. The man in the suit spoke up. Thank you for your meeting here to settle this lawsuit. Each of you has a package in front of you with the terms agreed upon by your lawyers. Please understand that by signing the attached documents, you agree to terminate this lawsuit and agree to absolute confidentiality. As you all know, severe penalties are provided for violations of the confidentiality agreement, which is prescribed in the documents. I confirm that the funds will be credited to the accounts and the checks will be issued as soon as the agreements are signed. I expected Tom to make some grandiose speech to finally get revenge, but it didn't happen. I think it was enough for him to watch us all sign the agreement. Each of the signed documents was collected and notarized by assistants. One by one, each side turned to their lawyers. It's just Tom and me and our lawyers left. Tom asked if the lawyers could give us a room for a few minutes. We went into the next conference room and sat down at a wide table opposite each other. I think you won in the end, I said. You couldn't be more wrong, Molly. No one won here today. I lost my marriage. What I received today was financial compensation for the diabolical plot that succeeded in destroying my marriage. Money doesn't make up for what I've lost, but it helps. Judging by the look you gave John and Gail when they walked in separately, I'm guessing you don't know what happened to them. No, I haven't heard anything about it. Their divorce is almost complete. I was right about Gail having a plan to dump John and take all their assets. The weekend was a setup. She knew that he would do almost anything to fulfill his fantasy of being with you. When she introduced the idea of a post-wedding agreement, he jumped at it. She got you right, too. You walked right into her trap. She knew that my private investigator was watching you, and she guessed that I would not tolerate you making love to John. I was part of her revenge on you. She knew I was going to follow you like she was going to follow John. She had her own private investigator watching your now famous last kiss, and his office was equipped with cameras. With this evidence, she can take everything from him. What she didn't count on was that I would follow her. Since it's confidential, I can't tell you how much, but I'm getting good compensation from Gail and John. Well, it's probably going to be from Gail, since she'll strip him down to his last pants. I have to say, I was a little upset that you were going to profit from joining my lawsuit, but since the company couldn't fire you because of your harassment lawsuit, they increased my settlement amount pretty decently. I understand that as part of your agreement, you are leaving the company. Yes, I hate going there to work now. I'm glad it's over. Tom, is there any way to give me a second chance? You said how upset you were that you lost our marriage and we could get it back. Well, that's not going to happen. My new girlfriend and I are getting serious. In fact, she should already be here to pick me up. You should say hello. My heart sank, but I knew it had been a long way. We went back to our lawyers and they finished filing the cases. Mr. Wilbur said I'd get the check in a week. This money wouldn't change my life, but it would allow me to get my own place and pay the bills until I find another job. When we all got out, a black Mercedes pulled up to the front door. My last shock was to see a stunning red-haired girl get out of the Mercedes. Molly, you remember Jackie? I looked at Tom in shock. But she is... Tom interrupted me. No more. She gave it up. Jackie ran up to Tom, hugged him, and kissed him. When Tom got into the driver's seat, Jackie jumped up to me and hugged me tightly. I'm so glad to see you again, Molly. I wanted to thank you for freeing Big Tom. He changed my life. I can't believe you left him for a weekend with little John. She held up her little finger and showed it to me with a laugh. He was pretty disappointing, wasn't he? Jackie blew me a kiss as she got into the Mercedes. After a long kiss, Tom moved on, leaving for his new life without me.